Hello there everyone, let's cover another faction overview. This time let's go with the Dominion of Isengard. So basically 50 regions and the destruction of 3 factions, even though a couple of them are quite small earlier on. But I gotta say that Isengard's campaign is for sure a very long campaign, and it has the ability. It kind of has a couple of hidden things here. So first of all, there's a rush that is needed. Not needed, but you always feel like the best course of action is to actually conquer Rohan's lands in order to get some money. But then you have this, the Simple Ring quest, let's say. So it's actually really interesting that Saruman has the power to control the ring, and you would have to conquer the location with Saruman there. It has some clues here, or actually, that he must be the general to capture the town in which the ring is found. He must also have 7 or less ancillaries. If you capture the town with Saruman and a few other generals, you must move the other generals out in that same turn. This is just game mechanics, because the ring will be on the same turn, on the turn will be giving to a random general that is over there. So just make sure that only Saruman is there so he can get the ring, because you can't pass the ring among others. So let's start with Isengard. Basically a long campaign, of course. 50 regions is already long, and you still have to destroy 3 factions. Of course, the Kingdom of Rohan is pretty easy. I mean, well, it's not like it's easy, but it's pretty easy to understand. But then you have to also go against the elves, and in the meantime get the Ents of Vanguard, which is still not easy. They do have some gold mines, so it's kind of interesting that you have to conquer those villages. Now you do start with some forts, and this is so important because you start with 2 forts that will give you 4 units in upkeep. Then in Isengard you already have 5, so basically you can support a very large army. And I would immediately go and conquer the lands of Rohan, because as soon as you reach Edoras, and if you manage to capture it, pretty much Rohan is done. You can have some early picks in Gineard, which can be conquered immediately, and some other rebel settlements over here. I did conquer those when I was trying to this campaign. Then it was interesting that Rohan didn't really attack. Now, you can get an early battle. When I mean early, it's probably in the first 10 turns, I would say, versus Rohan. But I would advise you to try the bridge. Try to lure them to see if you can get all of them into the bridge. Now, if you don't want to go into the bridge, then it's okay. Engage them on the fields, but do abuse anything that you can against the Rohan's cavalry. If you can find a Rohan's cavalry, like instead of a big army, if they have like 2 smaller armies, just go for it. Now, you do have the ring event, I already explained that. Okay, let's go into the military. Actually, Isengard does have a very interesting military. First, let's talk about the 3 faction generals that you start, which is awesome. You start with Lord Saruman, which is amazing. Then you have Chief Lurtz, which is also 10-star, and then you have Uruk that can get to 10-star very fast. I mean, let's talk about their units, the units actually that you can have. For that, let me go to the building browser. So, basically, you have the Warg Marauders. It's not bad. I mean, these guys are still pretty decent. It's just you will have less, let's say, than other Warg producing factions like the Orcs of the BC Mountains, but it still counts like a heavy cavalry, I would say. The only problem is that these guys are very vulnerable to archer fire. Then you have, of course, let me close this up. Then you have, of course, the troll cages. So you can actually have the trolls of the White Hand. Do note that these guys are skilled against mounts, and they are quite armored. I mean, the shield is really nice, and the defense is pretty cool. They're quite costly, but still, it's really a nice addition to Isengard. Now, let's check the basic infantry. This is where they get their numbers. It's great infantry, many anti-armors, pretty much everything that they have has a very good base attack, I would say. You know, so you get the basic unit of the Uruk-Hai raiders. These are your militia troops, I would say. Then you have the Grievers, which immediately is an attack 7 effective against armor unit. Very cheap in upkeep, I would say. Then you have the Berserkers. Now these are the guys that you want to use as whenever a unit is already engaged. Just send these guys from the back if you can. They'll hack and slash like nothing. And do note that this is so amazing. The upkeep is so low. Just mass produce these guys. It's always very effective. So they're effective against everything. Skilled against mountain, effective against armor. They frighten nearby enemy infantry. Just send them in. Then you have the half-orc units, which is very cool. You know, you have another effective against armor unit that has a little bit more defense than the Berserkers. Now, basically, let's talk regarding the half-orc spear gun, which is really one of the most important units right now for them. Still, because they are skilled against mountain, you're always going to have problems against that. So it's quite good that you have, let's say, a unit of each. Like you're going to have a pikeman, but before you're going to reach those, you're going to have the spear guards to defend yourself. And they're very good infantry already. Then you have the Uruk-Hai Infantry, basically, you know, heavy infantry at its best. Then you have the Uruk-Hai Pikes. Now these are among the best pikemen in the game. They're skilled against mounts, very long spears, and you can see just by their stats that they will hang on them. They'll hang out even against very good infantry. So just use them as you can. They will be awesome, 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 awesome. Use them whenever you, or just recruit them whenever you can. Now, in terms of the ranges, they do have the Uruk-Hai archers. Quite cheap, and this is quite the basic archer unit. I would say the accuracy being low, it's pretty much annoying. But do note that the Yokai archers, I'm going to defend this unit because if you consider the nearby enemies other than the elves, you will not have a lot of problems, you know, getting lots of kills from these guys. Enedwaith and even Dunland, if you would like to betray them, have very low armor units, and Rohan has a lot of cavalry, which is quite vulnerable usually to the archer fire. So they will still do their work, you know. Oh, I forgot to show. And then of course you have a very good upgrade for those, which is the Uruk-Hai crossbow. A missile attack 10, effective against armor, and these guys have quite a lot of missiles for a crossbow unit, and still the accuracy is not the best. I would say if you feel like you need that, you can always go into siege units, and that's about it. You know, just build a couple of ballistas to deal with annoying units, and that's it. Now, if it wasn't just for that, you already be cool, because you already have a lot of good units, but still you still have the Snagas, which are very cheap in upkeep. I kind of use these guys to form up a line in front of my units, because, you know, if they have a lot of cavalry, they'll just charge these Snaga skirmishers, which are so cheap. Just put them there, you know, you don't need to be worried about it. You can even do the same thing with these orc bands. They're very cheap as well, you know. And they will still get a volley of the javelins, which is really nice. So it like 3 units of these guys can pretty much cover your whole line, and will make sure that their charges are not effective. So do consider that when you're playing with Isengard, especially of course against Rohan. Now you do have the mines in Isengard, which is really important, as you can see there. But I wanted to show. Yeah, the shrines, I really like that they have the experience bonus, which is always interesting, and the retraining cost is actually really cool as well. Right, you do have Uruk-Hai bodyguards. Now I would say that these guys are bad bodyguards. I just think that you could have something else. I mean, if you see the other units, let me just show you. Yeah, you do have the Raider warbands and the Raider skirmishers. You've seen this many times. It's actually good that you have some additional units there. But I wanted to talk about the other generals, because you do have Berserker generals, which is so amazing because they cost almost nothing. Then they have the special abilities, you know, more army effectiveness. Basically, whenever you send your general against another general that's already engaged against some units, he will die very fast. Like, these guys just kill him really, really fast. It's really cool. And you have another one, with Chief Lords. Of course, be very careful of cavalry generals, which is a problem because you will face cavalry generals against Rohan, because they can get a lot of damage to those. Now, if you notice, there were some Dunland units there that could be recruited. You can also recruit some Goblin Infantry, but it's a cheap infantry unit in case necessary. I would just like to note that you have a skilled against mounts heavy infantry unit with Saruman. Now this makes it really cool because you will not be vulnerable to charges with Lord Saruman, which is really cool. At least not as vulnerable, I would say. Now do note that Isengard has a different has some different stuff because they actually can recruit some interesting units. It allows the guards of the Orthanc, the Orthanc sentries, and the trolls. So let me just show you the Orthanc. So you immediately have these units, which is so cool. You have the guards of the Orthanc, which is basically your Saruman's elite unit, skilled against mounts. It's not a pike unit, but it kind of seems one, you know, in their effectiveness. It's quite cheap for an elite unit, I would say. You know, both in recruitment, usually it's above 1,000, and the upkeep it's about 400. So get them as much as you can. You also have the sentries of the Orthanc. Now, these are the upgraded crossbowmen, I would say. The accuracy high just means just go for these guys as soon as they are available. Go for them. If you need, since you can only recruit them on Isengard, just send them to the fort so that they will be in free upkeep. Then you also have some clan spearmen, cheap units. I don't think they will actually need these guys, but it's also nice. Then you have also some beast slayers, which is pretty much your basic archer unit, you know, 24 on 170 average. This is pretty much every single faction has this, and they're not as costly in upkeep. The good missile attack of 5 actually makes these guys much better than your Orc or Uruk-Hai archers. So if you have beast slayers available, just take them. And additionally, you also have some Dunlanding horsemen. Now I would like to speak that these guys actually have some bonuses against cavalry. However, they don't have a really big charge bonus. I would use these guys mostly against Enedwaith, I would say, and just concentrate on getting wargs if I need to deal with Rohan's cavalry, you know. But it's still really interesting that with the Orthanc, you actually have a lot of free upkeep units, have a lot of good stuff that you can recruit. Like, even when you start in the beginning, I would just immediately get the higher units right there. And I would get like this, for instance, and you still have enough money to build some mining networks, I believe you have, if you just spare a couple of these guys. Yeah, there we go, and you can still recruit some units, depending on what you get. So, you immediately have those available, which is so nice. By the way, do note that they are available every 10 turns. These are every 13 turns. And these are every 17 turns. Let me show you the guards. 13 turns. So, just make sure that you abuse that, because the replenishment is really cool for Isengard. Now, as you've seen, you actually have the mining network, which provides a base income of 1,000. It's really cool. That's what you should go for. Early captures will mean better finances, but you have actually a very good upkeep because you don't pay too much for your units, and then you have the forts, and then you also have the mines. So all of this together makes the finances of Isengard very good. It will require some conquests and some micromanaging, as in which units should be on the forts, which ones should be attacking. You know, just make sure that you have a possibility of a reinforcement of the units from the forts. You know, just to make sure that everything goes well. You do start with a diplomat. You do start with a diplomat, and he's quite cool. And you know, for most of the time, Rohan will actually not be willing to attack you if you keep a strong border. You can't, by the way, you can't produce a spy. That is a little bit of a problem. So you know, the best way for me that I found out was actually to build just some watchtowers along the border to make sure that we could spot the Rohan. But still, Yeah, it didn't allow me. I think it was a little bit of a problem to get some towers. Oh yeah, sorry. This is Gilead, so you can actually build the towers here. I know there are some places near the bridges that you can't build, but you will be able to get some towers. And by getting the towers, you will at least have some knowledge, together with Grima that can spot the main road that comes in from Adoras. Hi, Query. What are you doing? So I think that is it actually. Isengard has a good replay value, especially if you want to betray or try and betray Mordor, or if you want to try and just go for Gondor. Or if you even want to go against the dwarves. I mean, it's really good that they start so in the middle, because you can choose if you go west, east, north, south, you can go anywhere. So it has a little bit of replay value as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you guys on the next one for Dunwood. Bye bye!